Hello, and welcome to Williams Mullen's Trending Now, an IP podcast, a legal podcast focused on providing innovative companies and investors with important and timely information concerning intangible assets, such as patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets. I'm your host, Rob Van Arnam, and today I'll be joined by my colleague, Janet Cho, partner in our intellectual property practice group here at Williams Mullen, and she's going to discuss with me AI and commercial contracts and transactions. How are you doing today, Janet?
Good, Rob. How are you?
I'm doing well. Excited to be with you to talk about this interesting topic. And maybe you can first discuss AI generally and some of the benefits and the ways companies have taken advantage of AI with their businesses.
Absolutely. And welcome to all of our listeners. It's great to be with you today. So AI, or what is known as artificial intelligence, is the simulation of human intelligence processes by machines, namely computer systems. I think that's basically a really fancy way of saying that AI tries to replicate the process or the steps that the human brain or the human mind takes when analyzing and coming to decisions. And so AI can be very helpful because a computer likely can do things sometimes faster than a human brain can, maybe not always. And that's where the use of AI in contracts can be very helpful. And I'll break down where I think AI may be most helpful in the realm of contracts. I would say it's most helpful, broadly speaking, in the review of contracts and in drafting of contracts. And where in the review of contracts, AI is helpful is that because AI allows you to access a large amount of information at one time, when you're reviewing a contract, AI is helpful because it can provide you with information and explanations in connection with provisions or language that you don't understand or maybe is unfamiliar to you. Very often in contract drafting, you may be asked to put together a document that you haven't done before, or you come across a provision that is relatively new to you, maybe because of the law provisions or the particular transaction at hand. So AI can be helpful in discerning provisions that are not clear, and it can also be helpful in suggesting revisions. You can also use AI in assessing risks of particular provisions or particular elaborated requirements in a contract. So, for example, if there's a specific local law requirement or a particular application of a statute, AI can be helpful in helping a drafter or a reviewer to understand the risks of particular laws and statutes. And also, you can use AI to research particular things that come up when you're reviewing a contract. I think one of the most helpful elements of AI is that you have all these different kinds of tools at your disposal at one time. Whereas if you didn't have AI, you might need to look up a statute separate and apart from your review, or maybe go back to the original drafter and ask them a question about what they meant. The AI platform can allow you to sort of do all of those things at one time very efficiently. On the drafting side, AI can be very helpful in providing exemplars and templates. So if you're asked to put together an agreement or a contract that you've never done before and you just want to see what's out there or what are some common provisions, AI can call for you or provide for you some examples to get you started. And again, it can help you with drafting and perhaps fine-tuning specific provisions. And I think ultimately why these things are helpful is that generally it will increase your drafting and reviewing time. So there's certainly efficiency in that. It can help automate things that maybe are very rote or, highly replicated that maybe drafters and reviewers don't want to do. So maybe it makes the contract drafting and reviewing process just much more enjoyable. But also it can reduce cost in all of this because when you have increased efficiencies, especially if your contract process is sort of revenue driven and you're going from drafting to closure in a timeline that previously wasn't helpful to you or was a lag on revenues, by making that process more efficient, you have the opportunity to potentially close transactions faster and get to your revenue faster. So I think those are some of the benefits of AI. And I think what I generally say is that AI is a helpful starting point in contracts and other issues. It's really a good tool to kind of get you a snapshot of what's out there and to get you thinking of where you might want to go next. So I hope that's helpful, Rob. And I know that what you'll be discussing is maybe the other side of this, which is considerations or things to take into account after you started the drafting and review.
No, that's really helpful. And there are so many benefits to use of AI with contracts and in due diligence in the context of transactions. But there are some concerns or risks that people should be aware of. Companies and their counsel are very familiar with, particularly in technology-related deals, diligence, questionnaires, risk assessments for things like security incidents or open source software, non-competes. But AI now needs to be part of that list and a consideration. And likely reps and warranties need to be included in any deal to understand what a target company is doing with AI, whether it has managed those risks, and what is the maybe acquiring company, as an example, taking on. One thing that we do, as you know, for clients is come up with AI policies. So in a transaction, a due diligence question could be, does a company have and implement an AI policy? And another thing is vendor contracts with target companies, which are really tricky in the space of AI. So often those AI vendor contracts are as is or as available. They don't have a lot of reps and warranties. And so both the initial company working with that vendor in the contract or an acquiring company taking on that vendor contract should be aware of what rights and obligations that they're getting from that. Similarly, indemnity in those type of vendor contracts are really difficult. Often there's a reverse indemnity where the vendor AI is getting indemnity from the company and nothing in reverse. And that's something that, again, the company and an acquiring company would want to know, try to get as broad indemnity right as they can. Similar with dispute resolution and termination. And often in AI contracts, it's very open-ended. It's taking and using data from a large number of sources, as you know. So what is the right of the company that has the contract or an acquiring company when they want that relationship to end? So, just some things for transactions to be aware of. And Janet, I know you're going to talk about some other general risks or concerns with AI related to contracts.
Yes, thank you, Rob. I think you raised some very important considerations. One thing I wanted to focus on is the intersection of AI contracts and copyrighted material. So for those who may not know, the way AI platforms work is that AI systems are trained by submitting what is called training data or something labeled as training data to the AI system. And then the AI system or the platform will analyze all of that data and make correlations and patterns and connections and use these patterns and connections to essentially make conclusions and predictions about future states or questions so that the system can come to some conclusions. So to that point, and Rob mentioned this, that the information within an AI platform is coming from a host of sources that you likely have not vetted. And it's difficult to point out that, this stream of information came here, this stream of information came there. So there's the potential risk when you're using AI, especially for drafting or literally taking provisions, that the material within that platform is copyrighted to another party and that you may be infringing their rights by copying or using or replicating a particular document, contract, whatever it may be. There's also the use of training information itself. If you have an AI platform that you're using for contracts or for a particular application such as M&A transactions, and you want to train your AI system to, review particular provisions or consistently draft a particular type of contract, if you're inserting training information, that might also be copyrighted as well. So I think the information that goes within and comes out of AI is something you need to think about to make sure that you're mitigating the risk that you're not violating someone's rights in inputting training information and that you're not violating someone's rights in taking out the information for your own use. It's not a discouragement from using AI, but certainly something to consider. So I hope that's helpful to our listeners.
Thanks, Janet. That was very helpful. And I think as we've discussed, there are a lot of benefits and uses for AI, but a lot of risk concerns that come along with it. I think this discussion could be and podcast, an hour or maybe several hours. But that's all the time we have today. Thanks again, Janet, for joining us for discussing AI and commercial contracts and transactions. Great to have you on Trending Now on IP Podcast. For our listeners, if you have questions or suggestions for future episodes, please contact us. You can visit us at our intellectual property practice page at williamsmullen.com/IP. And there you can find out more about our team as well as past episodes of this podcast and legal alerts. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast to be notified when our next episode posts. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.